Morning, guys. So, topic they're going to go over today is going to be how to put a recoil pad onto your rifle or shotgun stock. This is the stock that I was working on in the last video. This is the straight stock conversion, the English stock conversion. And you can see it's a little bit different than when we left at the last video. I've stripped off all the finish and I've done probably my progression through 220. I believe I'm on this. I'm going to move up to the 320 and then 400, and I might go up to 6 on this for the purpose of the demonstration of how to oil finish the stock. Okay, so but those progressions, the 320 to 420, I'm actually going to video those so you guys can see that, and video the whisking of the stock and raising the grain and filling the grain and whatnot. So this project's going to be continuing, and part of this video is going to be, I'm really excited about this project here. So let's talk about recoil pads for a moment, okay? So recoil pads are pretty important, I think, when it comes to the overall process of building a firearm. A recoil pad, if it's not put on correctly, it doesn't look right. The firearm just does not look right. If your lines from your heel and your toe do not continue from your stock line through the recoil pad, it doesn't look right. And it's something that, I can tell you from experience, it's one of the first things that the customer sees is if you, put your recoil pad on and your heel line is slightly off. Put your recoil pad on and the toe line is, kind of off one way or the other. It sticks out. This shotgun in the last video when I was holding it up there, the first thing I mentioned was I got this horrendous recoil pad that was on it. And, it's kind of a little detail that gets overlooked sometimes, but, it's a very important detail, This stock right here is a good example of a properly installed recoil pad. And this is what I'm talking about when you have your lines, okay? So your heel line right here, you can see continues all the way through the recoil pad. That line doesn't change. And your toe line right here continues all the way through the recoil pad, does not change. The recoil pad, you probably can't see it here, but I'll do a better close-up of it later. But the recoil pad on it is the same from this line through the recoil pad. It doesn't go here and then kind of pillow out, okay? So it's nice and flat all the way through. So that's a pretty important part, So you guys hear me talk a lot about the, chambering of the rifle, threading it, bedding it, whatnot, and how important it is. Well, the aesthetics of the rifle are just as important because we're trying to be custom builders. We're trying to build something that you cannot find in a shelf somewhere in a gun store, okay? I'm talking about a factory build or something like that. We're trying to build something better. So the recoil pads are, a pet peeve of mine, and it's very important to pay attention, in your build of how well your recoil pad is installed. So we will get into that today. I'm also going to do the repair on this. I'll change the camera angle here so you can get up close on this. But this, like I talked about in the last video, the person who did this before me did not install this pad on correctly. So we're going to go through the repairs of how to do that to the stock. When you I think one of the funniest things about doing this job so far in this shop here is the very first thing I did was a recoil pad for a neighbor. And that led to another job. That led to him telling somebody about me and me being, working here in my shop. And that led to a bedding job, and the bedding job led to a rebarrel, and the rebarrel led to a build, and and another recoil pad. So the very first thing that I did was the recoil pad. Okay, now not a lot of dough on these. Most of these are you're going to charge about $50 to put one of these on, and I know it goes below my $100 an hour rate, but I look at it as if you could put one of these on really well, and have some skill involved in doing it, and obviously show that to your customer, the skill involved putting that on, it's going to lead to more work, okay? And that's what this is about, getting more work, okay? So let's get to it. I will continue with this video. We'll go on and work on how to the tools that you're going to need on putting a recoil pad on. All right. Okay, guys. So what I got laid out here is what I use when I install a recoil pad. Okay. So the first thing I get is a recoil pad. All right. So it's important to try and get the right recoil pad for the job, all right? So this is a shotgun pad. And you can tell it's a shotgun pad because of the oval shape that it has. Okay, most shotgun butts are shaped that way. But you could put this on a rifle stock. You'd have to get probably an extra large one because it's not you're not gonna have enough material there to fit to the regular rifle stock. But for the most part, though, I try and stick and put these on shotguns. Okay, so this, on the other hand, is a rifle pad. Okay, you can tell the difference in the shape of the pad. Okay, so well, this one is more oval type. This one here is more blocky and rectangular. Okay, that's more because of the butt stock shape of a heavy recoiling rifle. Tends to look like that more. It's spread out more so that it helps mitigate recoil better. Okay, so this is designed for, this one's going on a 458 lot that I'm building. So it's going to help with the massive amounts of recoil that a lot puts out, and considerably more than a 28 gauge that this is going on. So get the right pad for the job. Next thing you're going to need is one of these. Remember these? This is your recoil pad jig that I had you guys make. Okay, this is a great tool. Okay, the recoil pad jigs. This one was copied from this. This is a Bob Allen, I think, recoil pad jig. And all I did was take the measurements from that and put it on a print and then make one of these, okay? So I'll show you how to line these up, how to use these, and this is a great tool. So discussing this jig real quick, jigs are really good things to have. They make your life a little bit easier as a builder, okay? It's harder to screw something up with a jig, okay? Now, that being said, there'll be, instructors and, other students and whatnot that will say that, I never use a jig. I always just glue this on and then I, or attach it somehow and then I eyeball it and I sand it and whatnot and grind it and all that. And, if you want to do that, that's fine. I look at it as, putting on a recoil pad is a skill like anything else. And, the first time that you do that you attach this on there and you're grinding it and something happens and you mess up your toe line or your heel line and you eat the recoil pad and you have to put another one on, you'll think about the jig, okay? Don't get sucked into, I'm puffing out my chest and I don't use jigs and stuff that you hear sometimes around the shop. Be suspect anytime somebody tells you that, okay? So jigs are a good and valuable thing to have in your shop. I'll do a video later of my shop and I'll show you it's full of jigs because it makes my life easier, okay? So the next thing that you're gonna need is a straight edge, okay? Don't need one this long, but a straight edge you're gonna use to help line up this recoil pad jig. Okay, this is gonna help you get your lines correct when you go to grind your recoil pad. You're gonna need a file, okay? This is just a standard, kind of rough a little bit, not, I'm not sure what the number is, but it's a woodworker's file. And I use this for, this jig's gonna get me to within about 95%. This file will get me to about 99% of it fitting onto the stock. So gotta have that file. You're gonna need some chalk, okay? I'll show what that's for in a bit. You're gonna need an awl of some type. You're gonna need the awl because you will attach your stock up here, your stock to your pad, and you'll scribe a line, and then you'll take your chalk and outline that line and then use your jig to grind the pad to that line, okay? You're gonna need, for the repair of these holes right here, you would need a couple of dowels. Now these are 1/4-inch dowels, okay? So you would need, I forget, I try and find either a numbered or a lettered drill that's slightly smaller than a 1/4 inch, to drill those holes out in that stock in order to put these in. You'll also need some glue, just regular woodworker's glue, some type of a hammer to tap these dowels in. And when you get down to the final part of finishing your recoil pad to the stock, you're gonna need some sandpaper. Okay, now this is 60 grit because it's what I had lying on the bench, but This is 60 grit, but I normally do about a 120 when I'm final fitting it to the stock, okay? So that's the basic things that you'll need to put a recoil pad on. So let's get to it. All right, guys. So we're gonna take the stock here and we'll get it in our vise, okay? And take our drill. We're gonna drill these holes out, okay? We're gonna basically make them larger, okay? So try and eyeball this drill bit here, you know, to get it straight in that stock, okay? That should be good right there. Same thing on the bottom. Now remember, so when you're drilling this, right, if you can't drill at this angle, you end up coming through. So you kind of got to get this a little bit more up like this. Okay. You don't got to go too deep. You're basically just getting it in there deep enough to be able to get these dowels in, okay? So once we get these dowels in, okay, what I want to do is get some glue, okay? And tap these in through a hole. About like that's good. So you're going to come back and clean this off and cut those dowels off, okay? But you kind of want a good fit on this because, you know, it's part of the repair process. Just like that, okay? So we'll leave that like that right there. And what I'll do here real quick is show you guys how that looks. Okay, just like that, okay? So we want to leave that, well, I'll wipe off that glue here when I'm done, but I want to leave that right there, and I'll come back after this dries tomorrow and I'll cut those dowels off flush. All right? All right, guys. Okay, guys, so it's the next day. The glue is dried and the dowels are ready to be cut off. That's what that looks like basically when you get that in there. So let's cut these off. Be careful when you're doing this because you don't want to get into your stock line there. So you kind of want to just take your time when you're doing this, okay? There we go. Okay, there we go. We'll take some sandpaper. I got a little bit right here. Get that sanded off. Try and get that nice and flush right there so that our recoil pad will sit flush up in there. We're going to put that on next. Re-drill these holes. Okay. All right. That's how that looks. Let's go on to the next step. Okay guys, you see here I've gone through and I've marked and re-drilled these holes in the dowels right there. Now that that you can kind of see how far off that was as far as this one right there. That was off to that side there, so I was able to re-drill and center up that recoil pad, and that's going to make this process a heck of a lot easier. So we're going to go through right now, and I'm going to show you how you line up and attach the pad to this, and we'll start grinding it. All right. Okay guys, so I have attached the recoil pad to the stock. Okay, I went through and used my screws to get up in there. Something I forgot to, as far as tools go, is Vaseline is something that you guys will need, okay? You need Vaseline because you're gonna take the screws, your stock screws that you use to attach your recoil pad screws to attach that pad. You have to dip it into this Vaseline, okay? You dip in the Vaseline because that lubrication that you have there doesn't tear out this hole right here. Okay, so when you're putting that in there, it's not going to tear that out. All right, so that's another thing I forgot to put in there, but you got to do. You got to get some petroleum jelly in order to get that in there. So the next step that we're going to do when we get our stock like that, when we get the pad on there like that, you see I've got enough meat at the top right here to continue this line through here, and I have enough material here at the bottom to continue that line through the recoil pad right there. So the next step that we're going to do is we're going to put it upside down like so. And take our awl, scratch awl here. I'm going to go right around that pad. Just like so. Now, here's a situation where if you guys are brave enough, like I talked about earlier, you can try grinding it in place right now. Okay, you would put tape around the stock right here and take it over to the belt sander over there and start grinding it in place. But just remember that if you're doing it and you make a mistake and you hit into the stock or you hit into your tape or you take the finish off, or very likely this is a stock that's been refinished, but many times when you replace a recoil pad, there's going to be a finish on the stock. So that's where you really got to use a jig, in my opinion, you know. So anyway, I'm gonna take this off and I'm gonna show you what the chock is for, okay? And I'll be right back. Okay guys, so here's where you're gonna use your chock at this point right here, okay? So you can barely make out that faint line of the recoil pad there. So you can take your chock and go over this pad like so. And now you can see that line right there, okay? And we're gonna need that line when we're grinding our pad because that's the line we're gonna go to, okay? So let's get this set up over here. I'm gonna show you how to use your recoil pad jig to get your toe line and your heel line correct, and we'll get to grinding this. Okay guys, so we got our stock back in our vise. Okay, and this is where we're going to use our straight edge right here, okay, and our recoil pad jig, okay. So the recoil pad jig, you notice on the bottom that it's shaped like a buttstock, all right. So that was on the print that way for a reason, okay, because what I like to do is to set it up just like that with the way this is your heel line, that's your toe line, right. So I set it up, heel line, toe line, okay, and what I'm trying to do is to I take this straight edge right here and I'm aligning this part of the jig with this part of the straight edge, okay? So we get this right here, we come up here and you can see, I hope, that this is pretty straight right here, okay? So it's pretty well lined up right there, okay? You get doing this a bunch of times, you can eyeball it, okay? But you get this lined up with that, all right? And you tighten it down, all right? And what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your recoil pad and you're gonna put it onto the jig this way, upside down, okay? Upside down. Not like this. You wanna go this way, because that's how we're gonna establish that angle. That's how we're gonna see that line when we're grinding on it, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and attach this to the jig, okay? And we're gonna get to grinding this, all right? All right, guys. So we'll get going on this. We're basically just gonna put our jig right on top of the plate right here, all right? And we're gonna just grind this back and forth, okay, right up to the lines that we got right up here. And because we have set this to the heel angle of our stock, we don't got to worry about anything. We don't got to try and line the stock up and all other stuff. We just have to grind it with this being flat right there, because the angle has already been set because of the jig. So let's try this out. So that's basically, see how we're moving in on that line right there, okay? Getting close up to that line. Now when you're grinding this, like this one with a jig, you want to grind right up to the line, maybe a little bit more, but not much, okay? But you want to grind right up to the line because you want to try and have some final, you know, be able to have a little bit of material left to final fit it to the stock, okay? So try and leave yourself just a little bit of material, because putting a recoil pad on, if you have a slight little finger thing when it's on the stock, very minor, that's okay. Under grinding this, you know, or over grinding this so that that's no good, okay? So when you're grinding this, try and go up to the line, not through it, and leave yourself some material for final fitting on the stock, okay? So I'm not gonna show the whole video of me grinding all this stuff through here. I'm just gonna basically, I'll come back and when I'm showing you grinding the toe, whatnot, but for this right now, I'm just gonna keep grinding this right here, all right? Okay guys, so you see how I've got my heel line done. I see I went right up to that line. I didn't go through it, I left myself just enough so I can do some final fitting of material on the recoil pad. And I've used my straight edge and I've reset, this is from my toe angle now. So you see how this is at that angle right there, because that's gonna match that toe line, okay? So I went ahead and reset that, all right? So I'm gonna start grinding this right here and we'll get back for the final fitting. Okay guys, so I've done my grinding on my pad. All right, so as you can see right here, the line's all gone. There's my toe angle, my heel angle. I left myself just a little bit of material on it in order to do the final fitting. But just from putting her on right there, yeah, it's pretty darn good, right? That's pretty darn good. That pad, you know, and making that to a straight stock completely changes that shotgun. All right, so you see my heel line is good, toe line is good. There's just a little bit final stuff to finish this off. So I'm gonna get that on there. What you're basically gonna do is you're gonna attach this to it and you'll go through with some sandpaper, maybe a little finish file or something, and get the final fitting on it so that it fits pretty good. But this is pretty good, you know, I mean, this is me patting myself on the back because that's pretty darn good. Okay, so now that's the thing about using a jig, okay? You don't have to use a jig, okay? You can glue it on there and final fit it on there. You know, some guys with the, you know, composite stocks, that's what they do, you know, and they do the shaping and whatnot. But, you know, I just look at it as this took me, I'm in this right now, I'm not even really sure, it's maybe 40 minutes to get to this point right here. It's perfect, you know, and it's the first time, okay? So I don't like messing around with stuff. That's just me, okay? I like the sure thing, you know, because if you eat one of these are about, you know, 25 bucks. Okay, that's what we get them for, okay? And for the higher end ones, the ones from New England Custom Guns or some of the other guys who do the reproduction ones, they're 50 bucks, okay? So $50. $50 if you screw this up is a big hit to your hourly rate, okay? So, you know, you don't have to use a jig, okay? You don't have to use a jig, okay? But I like to use the jigs because it takes a lot of the, you know, guesswork out. It helps me get my lines perfect, you know, and it usually gets me so that I can get it right the first time, because that looks pretty good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the final part here. I'm gonna do the final finishing, whatnot, and then I'll show you guys, okay? All right. Okay, guys. So Recoil Pad is installed and finished. All right. As you can see, I've got my toe line is perfect. My heel line's perfect. My lines through the stock are pretty darn good. Both sides. There's no pillowing to this pad at all. So we're going to remove. The next step is remove this pad off and get into the finishing part. Okay. That's another series of videos I'm going to do where I'm going to refinish this stock like we talked about, and I'll walk you guys through that step, that process as well. Okay. So recoil pads are important. Okay, they're very important. If you do not get this installed correctly, regardless if it's a wood stock or a composite stock or laminate stock, if you don't get this recoil pad installed correctly, it's one of the first things that the customer is going to see. All right. Everything that we do on the inside of the rifle, the threading, the chambering, the bedding and whatnot is critical. But all the aesthetics on the outside of the rifle are just as important, okay? You can have everything on the inside of the rifle, you know, totally perfect, but if something on the outside's wrong, that's what the customer sees. That's what his friends see, right? That's what, when he's out shooting that rifle and the recoil pad looks terrible, you know, that might not be a potential customer for me, because he's gonna think, if I can't get the recoil pad on there correctly, how's he going to trust me to, you know, chamber it correctly, okay? So pay attention when we're doing these recoil pads, whether you decide to use the jig that you guys built or you want to try grinding it on the stock. It's up to you. I like the jig. You may like grinding it on the stock, okay? I have a total of 47 minutes to this point right here on this recoil pad. So to me, it's worth it to go ahead and just use the jig, okay? So these videos are a lot of fun, guys. I'm really having a good time. This is stock work right here. I mean, this is the type of stock work that you know, everybody, when you leave here, you should be capable of doing, okay? So we're gonna keep going. Next video is finishing with this. I've got some bedding jobs that I'm gonna do as well. I've got a couple builds I have going on. I have a 458 lot in the shop that I'm working on. So we're gonna get all that stuff on video, and I hope you're enjoying this, because I'm having a great time. Okay, guys? So pay attention to these videos, because anything we're talking about here could be on the final, all right? Okay, thanks.